I thought I would take a minute to show you guys why I'm building this swale to collect rainwater to keep it from running down into the street here. My neighbor's got a really good example here. They've got gutters on the front of their house around the corner, and so this whole area here is just having its water going this way or water coming this way, and the water from the front is coming out this downspout right here onto the concrete and just running down into the street, which hits the middle and then goes all the way down because it's channeled to this drain down here. So it's basically just going into our sewer system. And what we could be doing, if you see the state of the grass here, there's not a lot of healthy grass growth. It's mostly weeds. It's really struggling to come back from winterization and dormancy. So it would be a lot faster if they had some sort of irrigation. And most people think that, you know, when they think irrigation, they think pipes and pumps and electricity, but it doesn't have to be that. It could be something as simple as this. You know, if you're on a slope, you can collect the water this way instead of having it just drain right off your property. So if you have flat land, obviously this, you know, the water would be soaking in. Even over time, it would just puddle up and sit there. But on a sloped yard, which is what a lot of us have because we live in these clone developments, we can utilize that slope at this point to collect water for the majority of our property, and we can grow fruit trees and vegetables along the edges, like right here. So I've got the swale dug, and I'm about to inoculate it with some mycelium, which is why you see paper products in it. But we're going to be planting along the front here and using the nutrition from the woods as it breaks down to feed the plants, and also planting along the back. So we've got the way the sun comes in on the other side of the house, sets in or comes up in the east and sets in the west. So this part is very shaded. So we can grow a lot of our shaded plants, like crops that we want to do. Like I've got pawpaws in here, and we're going to be putting a bunch of stuff. But and the light, actually, the sun in the summertime kind of forms a line right here and really hits this area hard, so we can still grow vegetables. And we've got mulberry trees and apple trees, and that's what this swale is going to be feeding water to, is the plants and trees that we have around it. So we can utilize this part of our property that was once just awful grass. Never looked pretty. I've been trying for years to get it pretty. I even installed an irrigation system, and it's because of the sandy loam soil, the water just runs off and the water bill gets higher and higher. So just to give you guys an idea, this is something that everybody can do that can benefit your property and provide food for you, or just make a pretty front yard. But we definitely encourage food. Food is definitely what we want to be growing, and at least beneficial, so that people that are growing food around you, the flowers that you grow, can bring the insects in that can help pollinate all the neighbors. All right, hope you guys are doing well, and we're pumping along here. What you guys are looking at is red clover seeds and DIKON radish seeds. I'm using the permaculture fertility method to put fertility back into the soil. So the DIKON radish adds an abundance of organics when it grows and then produces the tuber, so we just cut the plant and sheet mulch over the top of it to add a whole lot of organics of the size of the tuber into the ground as it rots. So I'm also using the clover for nitrogen because it's a nitrogen fixer. So I love these accumulators and how they work with the soil and being able to use them to increase fertility without using harsh chemicals and granular fertilizer that just washes through when you water. So the swale that I built here is about, I'd say, 6 to 8 inches deep all the way around, and this is just the dirt from out of the swale in the front that I'm going to be using as a planting area. But first I want to build the fertility in the soil because we have really sandy loam soil here. So the water is going to come off the roof and fall, and we have the sandy loam soil has a repellent quality. So as it runs down, it's going to hit the swale, this ditch I built basically in the front, and filled it with wood chips, and collect there so that the plants on either side, including this giant magnolia, a couple of pawpaws there, we've got some mulberries that I just planted coming up, a fig tree over here, and I'm going to be planting a couple more along here as time goes on and as these go up and we develop more of a forest in the front here. So, but right now I'm just doing boxes with manure and to kind of work into it and get this idea into the people's minds that are around me that we can grow food in our yards and still maintain a beautiful yard at the same time. Beauty is important when you're living with other people, so we need to maintain that respect level and make sure we don't draw any negativity between neighbors. So I like, again, this is clover, this is crimson clover, and then nasturtiums in between. So we want everything to be edible. Even around our mailbox, we've got kale growing, and there's some lettuce mixed in between, and some sunflowers coming up. Just going along, putting the seeds into the soil so they won't blow away, since this is a hill. As soon as I water, if I don't press the seeds into the soil, they're all going to run down the hill. And probably out in the grass actually. It just won't be as uniform. And we want to cover this soil because we want to protect our microbiology that's going to be in there from the sun. Now this is the soil that came from the trench that I dug for the swale. So it doesn't have a lot of fertility. Fertility is on the top 6 inches, and a lot of this came from slightly below that. So there won't be a lot of fertility in there, and plus this was sandy loam soil, North Carolina sandy loam soil along the coastal area. So there's a whole lot of sand in it, not a lot of silt at all. It was like 5%, 10% silt. So the swale that we put down here, we inoculated with King STROPHARIA. That's the wine cap mushroom. They call it the garden giant. It gets big like a portobello. So we're going to be growing these. This is the shady side of the house. So everything's lining up. It's just really awesome how everything's working out. We've got a delivery of wood chips, and we could have gotten anything, and it just happened to be oak, which is exactly what you want. Exactly. But you know, they can tolerate some pine, but pine has antifungal qualities to it, so we want to avoid the abundance of pine that we have in our area. It seems to be the majority of what they get. So this is a lucky thing for getting mulch in my area. Right now I'm looking for the smallest pieces of mulch possible, and the best place to do that is going to be after you've already moved the pile, or moving a section of it and then looking underneath where the small pieces have actually fallen through the pitchfork the whole time while you've been putting it in the wheelbarrow and you didn't notice it. So a lot of times you'll find it right here where you're standing. So this is the mulch you want if you're going to scatter mulch. Again, wheat straw would probably be better in terms of nutrition in the soil, especially right away or in the near future, whereas this is going to take longer to break down and it might actually tie up a little nitrogen on the surface layer. But I guarantee you there's no nitrogen in my soil right now, so I'm just trying my hardest to use the regenerative plants when I plant, so that they use the atmosphere with the bacteria on their roots, pull the nitrogen out of the atmosphere, which is the interstitial space in the soil and the roots, the space in there that has air in it, and the bacteria that are on the roots of the clover plants actually pull the nitrogen out of that space and feed it to the plant. And the plant stores it in nodules on its roots. So when we kill those plants, the nodules release into the soil, and we've got fertility. This is scatter mulching, so I just barely put a layer of straw over the top, and you can see that the clover, this is red clover, it's growing right through it, and it's nice and thick. hopefully that's going to lock those seeds in there so they won't come off when I water it or when it rains. But luckily now we've got this swale, so when the water comes off the roof, it won't be running down the yard into the street like it was. It's going to actually be going into the swale and into the yard. That's the theory. And we've got the seeds down here that we're now scatter mulching over, and we're not making it thick to where you can't see the soil, but just this little bit of scatter mulching is going to help with water retention and also start with the soil structure, giving it a little bit just for those seeds to hang on the surface so they won't come out into the grass. I had a couple jars of mycelium in the fridge. One of them is left over from where I did some straw logs, so I decided to go ahead and use that one. And some sandborn I got from MYCELIUM Emporium. I colonized it on 212, and it's been in the fridge ever since. I wanted to slow the growth and keep it from fruiting in the jar, so I just stuck it in the fridge, and now we're going to use it in the yard. And it's going to be on the back of the swale, so we're going to put it right back here where you see cardboard. Another good point is that the grass is going to decompose and become worm food. So that's actually, when you use cardboard over grass, the grass breaking down is the first worm food available. The cardboard is just colonization material for bacteria and fungi. So they don't eat it, so to speak, right away. They focus on the grass and the decaying organic matter that's more natural to them. Whereas this is basically a hotel for them to live in, is the way I've been explained. But maybe you guys know better, you know, leave a comment. I'm always looking to grow in my understanding, and I hope you are too. So what we're doing now is just wetting down some cardboard that I'm putting in the back here. I decided to go ahead and fill this in with wood chips while they're available. It's important to take advantage of these situations and kind of look towards the future and see if you can see what's going to happen so that you can be better prepared and use the resources while they're available. So right now I just got a couple packages in the mail today, which gave me access to more boxes, which lets me cover up more grass and put more wood chips down, because I don't want to be doing all the tilling that's involved with sorting grass. If you till it and it mixes into the soil, and I'm pretty sure there's going to be some blades of grass popping up on the front here where I was using the tiller to pull the dirt out of the swale that I built. So, but over time, you know, we'll be able to get them all out. Right now there's a lot of clover seed and a lot of radish seed with scatter mulch on top of it, so it should be blooming like crazy in a couple months, because those both grow pretty quick. So if I was going to plant in this and it had mulch over the top of it, I would pull away the mulch like so and just cut an X, and then that way, if you cut it deep enough, you can fold it back and then plant right in the middle of that. I've grown seeds right here, and I've also cut away the exterior and made so it's more of a square or a circle, and then put a cup, planting in solo cups, or if you use seed trays, you can put one cell in each one of these and then just pull the mulch around it to protect it, like so. And that is planting using sheet mulching and cardboard as your bottom layer over the soil to keep the grass from growing. Moving right along here, guys, it's starting to look like you can't really see where I had a swale. One good point to remember is that if you want it to be flat when you're doing wood chips, you want it to be a little bit thicker, probably about an inch or two, and that way it can compress and lose that space in between, that interstitial space. It'll compress down, and that way none of the neighbors are going to be coming over going, why is that ditch there, or why doesn't it look exactly like all the others, you know? Now the question could be raised that if we're planting on the front, and this is sandy loam with the water resistance to it, wouldn't the water that falls on this area just run off? And that's true, yes, it will. And what we're talking about here is terracing, where you put one swale and then another swale and then another swale. And that is the plan eventually, but right now it's more about HOA and keeping everyone happy around me. So we're doing this little bits at a time, guys, little bits at a time, just inching our way into a better way of life. If you guys get something like this that has that many green pine needles in it, that's no good for mushrooms, man. That's that green content that's in there, that sap. The green is the acidity, and that's the sap is my understanding, but I know that when the pine needles are green, then they are definitely acidic, and when they're brown, they're mostly carbon. They lose their acidity. So I believe that's because there's sap in the actual needles themselves. So this is no good because pine has anti-fungal qualities to it, the sap. So we don't want to use this for mushrooms. So this is going in the pathways where we've got grass coming up, like corners and things like this. That's a good use for it. I'm just watering the front part of the swale where I've got all the seeds down here for radish and clover, and I've put some scatter mulch just to kind of hold them in place. And I wanted to show you that when I'm watering here, even if the seeds move a little bit, they're going to get caught in between where the wood chips are, so they won't go down into the grass like they normally would if I hadn't have done the scatter mulch method. And I wished I would have gotten some straw, but and straw does work really well. It doesn't tie up as much nitrogen in the top layer if you're going to be planting other things here. But I'm pretty confident that this is going to work out well. It's hard to keep nitrogen and radish from doing well in any of the soils that you can plant in that don't have a lot of fertility, like this sandy loam or loamy sand. I'm not sure which one it is, but it's definitely sandy and not a lot of silt at all. But yeah. So we're moving right along, guys. This is pretty much done at this point. You can take a look here. I'll walk out, and this will be the wrap-up shot. Here we go. There's Maggie over there for scale, and here we go. Water comes off the roof, runs down, gets caught, and we have irrigation naturally without expensive technical stuff. So what is regenerative planting? This is DIKON radish and clover. And clover is a nitrogen fixer, so that one I can show you because I already have some mature plants that I've been growing around the yard in different areas, like in between things that are coming up, seedlings and such. So as the seedlings come up, the nitrogen is being put into the soil. 1% of every plant that's a nitrogen fixer is going into the soil for the plants around that plant. So the clover is feeding 1% of its nitrogen. So what does that mean? So nitrogen fixers put nodules on the roots, and I wanted to show you what those look like so you can see them. And it's hard because the sun's so bright on my camera here, it's hard to see, but you can see the nodules right here, those little white dots that are on the roots. Those are nitrogen nodules. Okay, and the more mature the plant is, closer to bloom time, the more of those little nodules it gets, the more nitrogen it's accumulating to put into the bloom. So if you cut the plant before it flowers, you're going to get the most nitrogen that it stores. And then that nitrogen is going to be put into the soil for the plants around it. So not 1% of the nitrogen, all of the nitrogen from this plant, all of these nodules will break down and become nitrogen for the plants around it. But before you terminate the plant and end its life, it only gives 1% of this little itty bitty bit of nitrogen to the plants around it. So if you're going to utilize this method, you have to plant a lot of clover. DIKON radish is more for biomass, so it's not going to give the plants around it minerals and like nitrogen like clover does, but it is going to add biomass, which is worm food when we terminate that plant. And also doing it before it blooms puts phosphorus and magnesium, I believe, into the soil. So that is a really good way of just building biomass. Hope this helped a little bit, and enjoy. Tom Sapp, Permaculture Wilmington. Check us out on Facebook, and we have a YouTube channel as well. Like and subscribe. Have a great day.